Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host as always, Steve Hall, and today we have an incredible guest, Ryan Doris, who's not only a high-level natural pro bodybuilder and powerlifter, he's also a well-renowned coach and a bit of a philosopher, and you're going to see that today. In this episode, we're diving deep into Ryan's evolution, how he's reconnected with his passion for bodybuilding, and the mindset shift that's transformed his approach to both training and life. We'll explore how Ryan has moved away from just focusing on competition and shifted toward truly trusting the process, an approach that's become foundational in his coaching. We'll share his thoughts on the invisible layer of bodybuilding, the importance of turning data into progress, and what it means to embrace the pain that comes with pursuing excellence. Now guys, as a reminder, here at Revive Stronger, we are an online coaching business. We help people get jacked, shredded, better relationships with food, better relationships with their training, better training technique, get the most out of their training, nutrition, sleep, lifestyle, all these things, allow them to enjoy it more, but also pursue their best physiques, whether or not that's for the stage, a photo shoot, or just for themselves and their own confidence. And we really pride ourselves on keeping our coaching very personal, allowing for really clear communication on our coaching platform, which is done through video diaries and bits and pieces like that. If you want to learn more, it's always linked in the description. And we have a great team of coaches, including myself. So without further ado though, talking about the show and talking about coaching, which comes up a lot during this podcast, whether you're someone looking to push your limits in the gym, gain insights into balancing bodybuilding with real life, this episode is packed with valuable takeaways. So let's sit back, dive in with Ryan. Ryan, it's fantastic to have you back on the show. It's been far too long. And I was just saying how I got reacquainted with some of your content and I was digging into it and I was really enjoying it. And it just reminded me how much I love your voice in this space. And I know you'd mentioned that kind of bodybuilding dog had kind of died off and dimmed, but it's kind of come back. So I'd love to hear about kind of what's happened to allow that to occur in your life right now.
Yeah, I would probably say time, just sort of a natural occurrence of time. When I first got into bodybuilding, you get in and you see somebody, and for some reason you think, I see myself as that. I see myself as achieving that, or maybe I have something to prove within myself that I want to get. And I think as for my first run, I did it. I wanted to achieve a certain trophy, a certain pro card, as you're experiencing now. And I got to do them all. And then my interests instantly sort of shift to newer things and different things and things I wanted to find in life. And it is very hard to live the bodybuilding lifestyle concurrently with, let's say, the family lifestyle if you're trying to build that new, or if you're trying to build a new home and a new location and things like that. So for me, life's been going pretty good. I mean, I have a great business and I love coaching and I love working with athletes, but one day you just look in the mirror and you feel incomplete. I just can't, I can't explain it. One day you look in the mirror and you think, I don't, I don't, I, I, I don't know this version of myself. Not, don't get me wrong. I've always trained, I've always exercised, but there's something that the spirit wants to express, sort of like a painter on a canvas or a pianist on the piano. There's something in the spirit that feels like I can't scratch this itch of who I feel I am or identify with I am unless I go to this extreme. And for us, the bodybuilding is the language. It's the way that we express ourselves for who we are. So I'm feeling the itch come back, not to compete. I'm not really interested in the stage again. But I think what I'm interested in this time is I'd like to master the method. I've prepped, I've gone pro, I've done shows and done well at shows. I've powerlifted and done really well in those, but never have I mastered the method. I just really been one of those guys who just looks killer good for 5 years straight and just really looks and walks and embodies it. So at this point, I feel I have enough equity in the system. I have enough a great network in it, and something told me, I know it sounds odd, really do it 100%. I know it sounds funny as if I haven't done it 100%. But to go vegan, I guess, is the feeling that I'm having. I'm having an itch to sort of drop the life that I live in now and drop everything and just go back to that total monk mode where I learn things about the world and myself through that lens. And it's called me back. I can't tell you why, I can't tell you how, but I that's what I'm interested in doing. And I've always been very stubborn. I do what I want to do, and if it's time to bodybuild, I bodybuild, and if it's time to not bodybuild and not feel resentful, I don't do it. Um, but I think also seeing, people like you, seeing the younger generation, has really inspired me. I mean, it's amazing how full circle the whole thing has become for me as well too. Seeing you guys kind of lead the forefront of new communication and new information in the natural bodybuilding space. I'm like a student again. I almost feel like I'm sort of hiding in the weeds again, and I get to sort of be kind of unknown and kind of and hidden and just enjoy the work. So for me, it's come back in a very strange way, in a very quiet way. And words are cheap. I can sit here and say what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, but um, I just want to see how good I can get. It's really that simple.
Yeah, I don't know why the immediate question coming to mind is how old are you, Ryan? Because I have a
37. I
feel
just turned 37 this year.
37. Okay, wow. I mean, you look freaking amazing for 37, by the way. A
Thank
bit of
you,
a
man.
baby face like me, I think. But prep doesn't help it look as babyish, but still, I hold it pretty well. So I am actually younger than you. I was like, am I younger than you, Ryan? I don't know if I am. So
Yeah.
I'm 34 this year. So yeah, not much though. There's not much in it.
In
But
bodybuilding years, that's substantial. In bodybuilding years, that is substantial. 3 years is the difference between an amateur and an advanced intermediate. Within that time, someone can substantially make huge progress in terms of bodybuilding years. So for me, it's been, 6 years have passed since I've competed. So in that time, people have made substantial progress and the game has changed. And I think for me, it's inspired me a great deal, a great deal.
that's really cool. Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where, like you said, I thought that actually like being analogous to being vegan, where because my girlfriend is vegan, I seem to bring it up whenever the topic comes up, but it's very confronting, and she is very much like veganism is not like you're not sometimes vegan, sometimes not. It's a full lifestyle. In terms of every choice she makes on a daily basis with consuming and living in this world. Whereas I've always liked to think of it more on like a spectrum, like you're more or less vegan. And obviously it's a bit, I think being vegan is black and white, but you could be more or less maybe plant-based or something. And I try and travel a bit closer towards veganism because I think, I guess morally, I like that. But the same with bodybuilding here, right? It's not like you're a bodybuilder or you're not. Like that's an extreme form of like bodybuilding isn't like that, but you are more or less on this spectrum. And I guess for many years, like you said, you were like very close to that light being on, no dimming, and now you really dimmed it, but it was still there in the background functioning. So, I mean, I've seen your physique updates recently, and you're still holding clearly like absurd amount of muscle mass. I don't think anything's been lost there, but you're just excited to maximize that even more over the next however long.
Absolutely. And I think it's not so much physique based, right? I think a big spark for this has been it's been I've I've always been interested in philosophies and different things like that. And during the pandemic when I had time, I finally said, I'm gonna read the Christian Bible from front to back. I've always been very skeptical of religion and things like that. And I read it, and like anyone else who actually can read it, it's just the greatest piece of literature you've ever read. It's been written over so many years, so many people have read it. And the main concept of this book, outside of religious, if I had to be as sterile as possible, is to leave your life that you're currently living, pack up your bags, and set sail for a better one. And that better one, it will cost you a great deal of loss, trial and tribulation, process of persecution, and that is the life of the bodybuilder. It spoke to me uh, in a sort of spiritual sense that you can do this not only in a church and with the mind, but in the physical body as a bodybuilder. Bodybuilding itself is a sort of religion. It's a sort of church, and I think kind of reading and learning about it kind of called me back home and yearned me back home for my bodybuilding. You know, I didn't see myself going. I enjoyed the book sitting in, but I didn't see myself sitting in a pew every Sunday, you know, and going to volunteer. And I saw myself benching 400 pounds, you know, and with the boys. That's what I feel is holy. Personally, you know, so I had a lot of things during the break that led me back here. One of the other things I did was Pilates. That was a crazy 2 year detour. I did not know much about core training. I always felt that bodybuilding has substantially weak information for core training. We're not core specialists. We do know the basics and how to develop a beautiful looking core. But most of our exercises, when we execute, are spine neutral, right? There's no, they will never call for lateral flexion in a bodybuilding exercise. You know, it never will call for an extension. So I was interested in the muscles of the core, of the spine and the back. I mean, they're muscles. I'm interested in muscle work. So that was a miserable experience, Pilates. I was like Ronnie Coleman trying to, you know, be in ballerina class. You know what I mean? It's like, it was like that scene every day from Pumping Iron where Arnold and Franco are kind of doing the ballet and they're trying to get graceful. That was literally me for 2 years. So the only way to learn Pilates is to become a Pilates instructor. So I took the long backwards route of trying to figure this thing out, and we figured it out, and it's been great. My wife has a great Pilates business now and everything from it. But I came out with a new knowledge of how the core works and how a core functions. So now I'm back to applying those bodybuilding exercises with some more insight, with some more reflection on it. So I would say these past few years, it hasn't necessarily been a setback. I think it's been getting my mind renewed and refreshed to see bodybuilding in a new light again, right? Because it can become quite stagnant when all you're talking about is long length partials. You know, it becomes quite boring after a while. And I think if you well, I think that's the current. That's just that's the current. You know, that's the
Absolutely.
current way. And don't get me wrong. When I first started, it was macros, right? It was proving to people that I could win the show and eat a Pop Tart. It was that rudimentary. In my time as a beginner, and now it's true, right? Can we do different ranges of motion? Absolutely, absolutely. Of course you can. We've all seen the guy who's benched with a long length partial, you know, for the old guy doing that. Of course you can. So it's good that we have these answers and that's part of the system. But for me, it's always been a deeper expression of something within me that the bodybuilding does. It is an art form. It is an art form to me. And when you lose the sort of freedom for that art and wanting for that art, it can become very structural with programs and numbers and becomes very technical and very scientific, which is extremely important, but it does not feed the soul, you know, at least for me. And I think for me, that's where I lost a lot of the wanting for it. So, you know, like any kid in class, I stop writing on the paper and I just look up and you wander a little bit. You let your mind get back interested in other things. And if you love it, it comes back. So I'm here full fledged again for no other reason to see if I can perfect it in my lifetime, just because I want to see. That's really it. That's really
You
it.
got to pick something, right? That's the way I often think about it. Like, hey, if I wasn't doing this, there would be something else that I'd be like semi decent at if I really applied myself to it, but unlikely like the world champion type of thing.
Agreed. Agreed. Agreed.
There's something I heard you say on one of your videos was that some days you train 4 hours. Is
Most
that
days I
right?
train. Most days I
Four
train.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
So run us through that. What does that look like? Because I mean, when I heard it, I was like, wow, that sounds like a lot. Are you really doing the Ennis study for every muscle group or something? You know, the 52 set quad study. And again, I'm being that person. But
No, it's
yeah,
not that it's not
what does
that
it look
many
like?
it's not that many exercises. It's mostly sort of the way that I now train now. So if I had when I start a session, I start off with a bit of mobility. I used to do mobility separate and stretch separate and all those things. I'm huge on static stretching. I know I really understand what the data says on static stretching and what people say, but it's one of those things where you grew up doing it. I grew up running track, and I ran track off through school and things, and we started off static stretching, you know, and then you end up with a bit of dynamic stretching. So I'd probably say the first 20 to 25 minutes are just moving my body in any way I feel I want to. Like you, I sit a lot. You know, we're here coaching a lot, we're here making content a lot, and it's a great deal of sitting. So my body doesn't it's cold. The engine cold start is not as good as it used to be. You know, it takes a little bit of oiling up and to make sure I stay injury free after each session. And so mostly warm up, I'd say probably for the first 20 minutes. And then the first half an hour, I would say are two exercises that are around 8 RPE or so just to get me in the game. And it takes me an hour, I think, to really be warmed up and to really be rocking, right? So within that first hour of just maybe 20 minutes of stretching, 30 minutes of lighter isolation exercises for whatever I'm doing that day, it'll get me up to my compound maybe after 45, 50 minutes of moving. Then I start rocking it. And it doesn't take very long, you know, to do these exercises. What really I think is my secret, and I really always have held near and dear, is my rest periods. I've always really and truly believed in take as much rest as you possibly need to not be cold, but to really not waste any reps in the tank here. For years, junk volume was one of my nemesises, and feeling like I had to get out of here. I only have an hour here today or so, or I only have 2 hours. And I just flipped shit. I lost my mind one day and I said, I'm not interested in the money. I'm interested in being an athlete, you know, and I really felt like I'd lost the center of that. So like I said, my core sport growing up was track and field, and we would practice 3 hours, 4 hours all the time. And it's just a joy for me to be out there for that long. Exercise selection wise, you know, I'm not doing any more than, let's say, maybe on a leg day, 6 exercises, you know, six movements, 3 sets. Maybe at max I might do 8 to 9 on an upper body day. But it's not a lot. I think what really makes the time drag on is the gym I attend. I go to a classic old school bodybuilders gym. I mean, it's something from the past, but it's really unbelievable the thing that they built out here in Chicago. And the community is just great. It's hundreds and hundreds of competitors. When the big shows come in town for Chicago, everyone comes to our gym, and it is just fertile soil for a person to have the bodybuilding of their dreams. So between that and then obviously now the cardio, I've added some bit of cardio in, so that takes a good chunk, you know, 40 minutes just the cardio. And then I'm posing, you know, and so I'm doing the whole rigmarole. I'm doing the whole thing, you know, from warming up to small exercises to big exercises to talking to enjoying my rest. And then next thing you know, you look up and it's 4 hours. Yesterday, I went to the gym. I said, okay, I got to get out of here. I'm gonna go quick, and it was 3 hours. You know, I can't seem to pull myself away from it. There's always more work I think I can do. There's always a smaller detail I think I can improve. There's always so much to find, and I think this has come really because I don't want to compete right away, at least, or really compete at all. I just feel like a kid who's got his favorite toy back, and I just want to have a blast. I just really truly have a blast, and you can understand how this feels. You're working now in a prep, and you have some ideas, but your coach wants to do this, and Cliff says this and that, but you think this, and then other people say, hey, why don't you do this show? And it can become so heavy, your personal experience of this, that it blurs the line between what do I genuinely, for myself, want to do and enjoy, and what do other people say, and the pressures of, and I have to get back and record a podcast and all, you know, and all these things. I just said, fuck all that, man. I'm started as a Natty Pro, and I want to end this thing as the Natty Pro. I really want to start it with some world-class bodybuilding, and I'd like to go out with some world-class bodybuilding. So for all of my detours, it's come back to the old 4 hour training that we used to do back in college, me and Big Sam Okanola. It's come back to how it used to be. It's just a blast. It's just fun. And I should also mention, I have the capacity to this. Lane Norton talks about this a lot. I didn't start off at 3 hours, 4 hours. I didn't start there. Over time, it just got that way. It just seems like I can do more. In fact, yesterday, I was there for 3 hours, and it just seemed like I left more on the table. It always seemed like I can do more. So genetically, I have an amazing engine. I really do. I have great genetics for it, and I think also mentally, I just love it. It's like building a puzzle or playing a video game. There's just so much work to be done. I mean, there's over 400 skeletal muscles. There's so much to discover. There's so much work to be done. So if I get a chance to do a bicep movement today, I may not see it again for 3 days. So I really want to make sure that this day today, this chance I get, I maximize the opportunity to do it as best as possible and focus as possible. So it goes by quick though, I can tell you that. It doesn't feel like 4 hours.
Good. I think if it felt like 4 hours, maybe you wouldn't stick it out, because it's kind of like time flies when you're having fun type of deal. And I think given that context of maybe there's an hour on the front end, an hour on the back end that isn't pure like bodybuilding work, then you take long rest times. Hey, a 2 hour session is for someone who isn't like, I don't know, maybe even when you're getting stage ready. But for me, I would struggle I just don't need the amount of volume that would take me that long. Like I can't deal with it. Like I get exhausted from like 5 sets of quad work and I'm like, I'm done.
Can I tell you though, when I get home, I come home and I am knackered. I mean, I have no energy but to just stare at the ceiling. I am so tired after. So it takes everything. I mean, I really have to get some caffeine back in me just to get back to emails and work that night. So I get drained really every day. And in terms of recoverability, if the reps feel clean, and no real bad messy sloppy reps, and my joints feel good, I recover. I tend to recover. I'm very good at sleep and things like that. So I would never write a program for anyone to train 4 hours. I would never do that. I would never give that to anyone. But I'm 37, and for 20 years, after a while, you kind of get the hang of it. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is it's auto-regulated. It's not like you feel like you have to do that much. It's that you can, and the body's feeling good for it. Whereas someone else, like you said, a lot of people, you program them that, and they don't have the lifestyle for it. They don't have the engine for it, the genetics for it, like all of these factors built into that. So if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, the Natty Pro, I want to look like Ryan Doris, I got to train 4 hours. It's not going to be a wise move. You've got to find like your recipe as such. And cool that you're doing the posing. I was wondering, I was like, 4 hours, I wonder if there's some posing in there, but you said you're not the stage. It sounds like you have mixed feelings about taking the stage again.
I have, okay, so two things one thing for the posing, another thing for the stage. One thing for the posing is, in my personal opinion, I think there's a substantial difference between people who lift weights and don't pose and people who lift weights and do pose. Posing is an integral part of bodybuilding. Posing is the way that you can check your bank account, so to speak. The way that you can say, how many pennies do I have in this bank? How much money is in here? If you're not posing somewhat obsessively, you have no idea what's going on, right? These poses, the mandatories are made for a reason. It's an evaluation check of how things are balanced and how things are looking. And it's a constant check the work, check the work. It's a little bit like doing math, right? You wouldn't just blaze on with the problem if you maybe made a mistake in your mathematical formula, 5 lines up or something like that. So to pose, I think it makes the difference between who's a bodybuilder and who's someone who lifts and enjoys lifting and wonders how can I get this bigger or that bigger. With posing, you get discovery. You find how muscles work. There's well over 400 muscles. There's a great deal of muscle on the body. And you may not be activating, let's say, your traps well or your upper glute well. And these things come out when you pose. If the pose doesn't look right, that means that you're either not training that thing or accessing that muscle best you can, or you're overcompensating on another part of the muscle, right? If your outer quads aren't great, then maybe you favor inner quads when things get heavy and a little scary, right? You don't have the courage to stay on that outer quad. So posing is essential for me in terms of measuring of how well you're doing to the method, right? It'd be like cooking a recipe and not tasting the food. It's essential to know how much salt is going on, I think, for a fine physique, for a world-class physique. Something that got me back into posing was Pilates. Pilates is a series of poses, really and truly, that move through space. So you may start in position one, a lot like yoga, and you move through that space and you try to master the pose with your core or abdomen or whatever it may be. And as I was doing these and learning these, I said, I've done this before somewhere. As I was in Pilates, I said, I've done this before somewhere. I said, the poses, they're full body poses. So for me, posing is essential. There's a substantial difference between people who want to make results and people who go day to day and just lift and they enjoy it for fun. But if you want to make results, you have to sort of look at it. There's a powerful phenomenon to observation. When humans are conscious of something and we observe something, we can almost see it in our sleep. I'm sure you've had dreams where you've woken up and you've somehow had some type of posing nightmare, whether you forgot your trunks backstage, or if it's posing is such an essential part of bodybuilding. I think not only in progress, but it is the sport. You do all this hardcore lifting and you have this huge hardcore attitude and you're badass and you're diet and you're harder than everybody. And then when you go out there, it's a beauty pageant, really and truly. That's what it is. That's really what it is. And if you don't know how to gracefully display the body, and you don't and you should feel proud, if you throw a front double bicep, you should say, I've looked at this pose a trillion times and I know where my chest is. I know where my tricep is. I know where my thumb is in my fist, right? It's a overwhelming amount of detail that it takes to pose greatly. Not only is it tool, is an essential tool, I think, for measuring progress, with your clients. How do you measure progress other than the data? And let me see what you look like, and the best way to gauge what a person looks like is the mandatories, and whatever division they're in, right? That's sort of the standard we've set for muscle work. So posing is essential. I have not posed in a long time. Since my last show, I stopped. Even in my last show, I wasn't posing that much, and it showed greatly. And I'll never not know how to pose again. I learned my lesson there.
I really like the way that you again used a really cool analogy in terms of like checking your bank account. Because if you're a bodybuilder, it's like, I mean, it's all good what the numbers say on the spreadsheet, whatever, but actually how you look is the most important thing. So it makes a ton of sense. And man, when I first did my first two competitions or first two seasons, I really didn't understand posing. Like first season, I didn't understand posing at all. Second season, I was like, oh yeah, it's important. I should be able to hold the poses, but like didn't really individualize them to me at all. And then it's like this season, everything feels like it's come together. And I'm just like, man, just that slight tweak on my pose is suddenly taking me from looking like a SpongeBob type of guy to like an actual X-frame. And actually, because I'm judging now regularly, like I see it with people on stage, and there are guys with so much muscle, and it's like, if you can't pose at all to show this off, and so that's not going to be world class. So I totally get it where you're like, hey, I had, like, especially as a bodybuilder, if you're getting down to those essential levels of body fat, you put in all that work, then not to be able to show that off. It's frustrating as a judge and someone to see that, but also it's a lot of work, as you mentioned. Like posing isn't like you called it a beauty pageant, but up on stage, I suppose I haven't done like what a beauty pageant would be, but a model. I'm imagining there's a lot that goes into that walk and the presence they take to stage, like the amount of practice that they do. So they're just not starving in the same way. Maybe they are. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they are. But I would also say it's not only just posing for presentation, but for confidence, right? If you get out there on stage and you hear the judge call the pose, it's very daunting when they go, gentlemen, face the curtain. It's very like you should have not, in the past 6 months, you should not have passed up a mirror and not posed into it. If you see your reflection, hit a pose. Always be posing. Always constantly be posing. The whole day will be judged based off how well you peacock, based off how well you walk into that room, based off how well you present yourself. It's not only a matter of you going pro with your nutrition and you going pro with your training, but the reason why people go pro is also because they're professional posers. right? You and I don't have that impressive of physiques for natural bodybuilders. But when we get the posing, boy, oh boy, I'm I'm something special because I've mastered how to present it and create sort of the illusions, the sort of the magician's trick. So posing for natural bodybuilders in particular is the gateway. Great posing is the gateway to having an impressive physique because if you take our clothes off and just sit us down, unflex, none of us look that great. None of us look that great. So
No, we kind of look like, well, I would look
swimmers.
like, yeah, swimmers. Man, I've been told so many times I look like a swimmer,
We
like
look like
swimmer's physique,
swimmers.
particularly right now, a bit of a naked mole rat kind of look going on as well with no hair. It's a bit of an odd one, but yeah, definitely not. I always think about well, it's like peacocking. It's exactly as you said. You think of a peacock just walking down and then woof, it shows all the feathers off. It's transformational. So it's exactly that. You did mention also in one of your videos, speaking about competition, where you shifted your mindset from this kind of competition-driven mindset to more of a trusting the process of bodybuilding. Can you walk through that kind of mindset shift?
Yeah. So I competed in bodybuilding and powerlifting. I competed from 2008 to 2018. So I'll call it a 10-year run. I'm currently on this 6-year stretch where I've been learning different things and just having fun with my body, and I'm now getting back to the full bodybuilding method again. Um, I would say in those 10 years, my primary mode of operating was creating mind states where I would find competition, want to beat the competition. I would take it personally. I would shape my mind to be the fiercest and best competitor there was out there. And you got to do it. There's no way you're gonna win unless you take it really serious. You're not gonna walk in and win. People really take this as their livelihood. But for me personally, I've always felt it was very exhausting. It doesn't come at an easy cost, to be competitive. It drains the spirit and it drains the soul a lot. Um, in the last competition I did in 2018, I felt a very strange feeling, and I've heard about this feeling. I've heard about it, and it happened to me. It was a WNBF show out on the East Coast somewhere, and they were working us. I mean, they had us out there for probably 45 to an hour. And my thought was, why do they have to have us out here so long? There's only five of us. They can clearly see who's won by now. And at that moment, I realized, this is just not the mentality it takes to be a winner. Another sensation that I felt in that last season was I had fun. I just went out there and had fun. In those previous years when I won all those contests, I was fucking never trying to have fun. I was not here to be your friend. I was not here for fun. I'm not here to enjoy. I'm here to win this trophy. My attitude was always, which one of you motherfuckers wants to take second place today? I always came to destroy. That was always my mentality. But I've gotten older and I've gotten a little bit more gentle, and so I've tried to see, what happens when you separate the wheat from the chaff. Without that bad boy attitude, am I still a great bodybuilder, right? Have I lost any information if I change my perspective? Have I lost any grit? Have I lost any dedication? And the answer simply is no, but it's on a different timeline, right? I won't be able to muster up the strength to do it within 24-week period and just get it all flawlessly and perfectly. But I think over a few years, I can compound some changes and be a little more compromising here and there for my new life foundation with I'm not a single guy anymore living in his California apartment, just living the bodybuilding dream. You know what I mean? Things have changed. So I've kind of just stepped back. I guess you can call it presence and kind of see Ryan is still the same Ryan. I can still train for 4 hours, whether or not I hate the guy. I can still have an amazing physique and probably still win with a completely new and renewed attitude. So I feel like I don't know if you remember Manny Pacquiao many, many years ago. He was he went Christian, and he got all nice and he got his ass knocked out. He lost his dog and his heart. But I've changed my model completely to I'm not here for anyone. I'm not here to compete with anyone. I'm not against anyone. I mean, I really was. That's how I did it. But these days, I'm just here to still win. I'm here to still win. I think I can still beat in my heart. I still believe I can beat a lot of people. But it just doesn't carry as much weight as it did for me anymore. What really matters to me is I've got a great deal of equity into this method. I've got a great deal of equity into this lifestyle. And like you said earlier, you got to choose something, you know. So where on the spectrum do you want to be a vegan? And I've just made a sort of a clear decision, like I want to be a vegan. I'm a bodybuilder. That's what I want to do. I'm going to Italy next month for a wedding. I'm in a wedding, and my wife and I are going for a week. And I said, let's book an Airbnb. Let's get groceries. Let's get food. Like, let's get complete control of my situation when I'm traveling. And before, I would only do this if I were doing a contest. But I'm finding that these skills are not beholden to me being competitive against another man. This is just who I am. This is just what I like to be. So it's been refreshing to get it all back, to sort of get a new spring of sorts, without having to have anyone else involved but just me. So it feels quite nice.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. Additionally, you get access to our exclusive Revive Stronger member site, where you'll be able to watch over hundreds of hours worth of educational content. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
I like that, because immediately when you talk about the kind of mentality you previously had, it made me think of Michael Jordan. I've watched the documentary, absolutely crazy. And he had that, like, he was against everyone and it was a battle. He didn't seem all that happy though. Like when I look at it, and it sounds very similar to you here. Whereas I also watched, I don't think it was a documentary, but I think I listened to Chris Bumstead on a podcast a few times, and totally different. Much more like Ryan now in terms of much more relaxed. He's working against himself. He doesn't like hate his opponents. Like he's not like doing this sort of, he's not like voodoo dolls and stabbing Ramon, something like this, you know, which I feel like Michael Jordan might have done. Like he purposely was trying to build everyone up to be his enemy. And so it's refreshing to hear that you can have taken like previous Ryan there and you can have transformed him to be maybe, I don't know, a bit better, well-rounded, I would say at this point.
Yeah, I would definitely call it more well-rounded, and I also think it's a less a fierce version, but I think it allows for more precision in the method. You know, the time I spent away from thinking about my competition or competitors, though it sort of feels like a very strong emotional charge and motivator. It's a the seed doesn't really harvest that great. You know, you might win a competition here or there, but you can do much more for people, more for your community, and I think much more for yourself. Sort of when you find that peace, and I keep tying it back to this example. When I read through that Judeo-Christian Bible, I kept seeing examples of war. You know, there's an excessive amount of war and fighting in these books. And one thing that I saw when I got in particular to the Jesus portion was this idea of the Martin Luther King sort of Gandhi peaceful victory, right? This sort of idea of like people through history who have been able to win the war but not strike any blows against their competitors, right? And it's a powerful concept. It's sort of the Buddha side of the coin. You know, it's a power that is rendered sort of through the process itself, not necessarily through the fierceness of other people. like Michael Jordan, he would have to be so mean to his teammates, punching them and doing all types of things. And I never hit anybody or anything like that. But if you were with me on show day and things weren't perfect and things weren't, I could be a little bit of a prima donna, but now I feel, who who cares, right? Let's enjoy this life. We may not get it today, but maybe we'll get it tomorrow. And if we get a chance to see perfect or reach perfect, we'll sort of get there. And we don't need enemies to win. You can sort of win the victory and sort of win the war purely by just doing the right things, purely by just not having a chip on your shoulder and saying, what is the hard work I need to find today? What is the detail I need to find today? What is the rest I need to find today? Even last night, I was thinking about this morning and I said, okay, well, I'll make my eggs tonight and fuck it, I'll just eat cold eggs tomorrow. Who gives a shit, right? You find more and more ways to make the system work without having to necessarily go to anger and those common adolescent feelings that we, all had as young boys sort of growing up. So it's just me heading into my 40s, with a whole new wave of philosophy and thought. And I did not ask for this. I would love to fucking bust some heads. It's my favorite thing. I would love to, but the tide has just washed out, and there's not much I can do. I just don't feel that way anymore. So, but I do feel like I really want to do some world-class bodybuilding, and I'm gonna let that be enough.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, you've mentioned several times that bodybuilding is kind of like a religion. And in one of your videos, actually, you talked about like strict pillars of like macro, sleep, training, which we've talked about several times here. Posing could be one of them too. What advice do you have for, obviously you work with many clients, but for people listening, and I guess stuff you tell your clients, for people who are struggling to make it a lifestyle rather than just a hobbyist? Like how can people start to build those kind of pillars into their life a bit more?
Yeah, I would say obsess about progress. I think there's two things. There's results and then there's progress. Results come like a strike of lightning. One day you get on the scale and it's like, oh, results, results come very slow. And I think a lot of people are very results driven and they would like the sort of the superficial physical outcome. And I think that's what we all want and should strive for. But the thing that we should obsess for is progress and improvement, is it's sort of the invisible, is how do I get to that result that I want? But what can I change now? What habit can I change now? What way can I change now? What can I do right now to change my habit and to make some progress towards that? And in my opinion, this is very hard, I think, for people who are hobbyists and such, is because to make that progress, it's an invisible thing. It's a way of life that no one truly sees. But you're going to have the courage, right? Because the world we live in is not set up for but the bodybuilder, right? You can't just walk outside and they're going to have things structured for you. If you go outside and say, shout to the world and say, hey, I want to be a plumber, they'll do it for you. They'll put you through school. They'll set you up. They'll do everything for you. They'll show you how to make progress and to get those results. But for us, you have an amazing amount of things that are going to impede you making progress or change your mind from making progress. You can compromise and say, oh, well, it's just a beer or it's just a brunch and just these things. So for a lot of people, the things I would say chiefly is defend your ability to make progress. Do not try to isolate yourself to make progress. That won't work. No one alone is an island. Find the people in your life who agree with your veganism of sorts, and do your damnedest to look for progress every day. People would be overwhelmed, and Steve, you know it, you just turned pro, how much more work there is constantly in this method. I can't believe how long I've been doing this, and I feel like a freshman all over again. I'm blown away with how deep this hole is. And that hole is dug through finding the progress. And maybe every now and then you hit a result, you find a diamond or a gem and something to celebrate. But between you getting that pro card, the amount of progress you had to make day to day, the amount of mistakes, the amount of frustrations, I would probably say it was upwards in millions of decisions you've had to make in progress decisions to get to that one result. So results are great, but the progress portion is invisible, and that is the whole game. How can I continue to inch on the thing that's blind that I can't see. So that'd be my biggest takeaway: is live a life for progress and get people around you who want to see you do it.
I really like that. It makes me think of being process oriented. Like that's the thing that comes to mind. And like you've kind of said, rather than it's that typical client, and everyone has it, and we all have it, where you look at the scale, you're in a fat loss phase and it's not going down, and you get really frustrated, and then it goes down, and you celebrate those wins big time. It's like, hey, actually, what you could celebrate is just knowing the things that you needed to do to have got to that result. So, hey, I hit my macros for the day, tick the boxes, I got my steps in, my cardio, my training. You almost focus on those steps versus that lightning bolt on the scale, because that's fleeting.
But that's not sexy at all, and I can understand why, especially in the society that we live in today, with how fast things come. You put up a post and you get instant gratification for things. This is different. Bodybuilding is an old school method. Biology is old school. I mean, it is as old. Biology and physiology is an old. It's on the old clock. It's on the dinosaur clock. It is slow business, and I understand why people want to see results, but the process is the whole thing for this method. And it's very hard to understand that, because I think our egos and brains say, okay, well, give me something better to think about. Give me something different. This is boring. No one sees me. No one sees all this work I'm doing. I want to be plugged in. I want to be exalted for my efforts. And that's why this is a great method of humility. The one that can sort of zip their mouth shut and take the progress comes out looking like Conan the Barbarian. It's an astonishing method of rewards to those who stay humble and to those who keep ticking. So to that, I would say focus on that. And in that regard, it's more of a spiritual practice. We're not looking for heaven. We're not focusing on that, right? We're simply just focusing on, did I do my day-to-day steps? Did I do my whatever monks do day to day, right? Did I do my meditation in the garden? Did I do my cleaning today? Right? We're not searching for nirvana. We're not trying to hit the big lotto. If the lotto is ours, well, it's ours. If it's not ours, well, it's whatever. But the goal that I'm looking for is that I felt good, that I conquered myself, that I beat my old habits, that I moved forward. And if you do that well enough, then one day you'll be crowned, with the pro card. That's kind of the game. So
I couldn't have said it better myself. I always say bodybuilding, especially natural bodybuilding, is delayed gratification personified. Like it's exactly that. And like for me, it's you mentioned the pro card. Like it's amazing to have achieved that, because at the start of my career, I never thought I could, and slowly I believed I could, but I never went into even this season thinking I'm only doing this to achieve this pro card. It's like I'm just doing another bodybuilding season because I think I've improved enough to come out and bring out a better Steve. And if I hadn't focused on, like you said, all those process elements, I wouldn't have ever even have consisted more than like a year. So brilliantly said by you.
And that is, Steve, and that is the definition of process, is that it will crack when it cracks. You don't judge the process. You can't tell the process what to do. The way the process works is that if you're too busy thinking about what you want, then you're wasting time not making progress on what the process calls for at this very moment, right? You can always be in it, and that's the beauty of the process. It doesn't matter if it's sleep better, put sleep in a colder room. There's always more you can be doing 24 hours around the clock. It's like military or a woman in a pregnancy or religion. It's an all in effort, and I think that's very hard to understand for a lot of the new generation who has seen it only on a very quick and fast 7-second, video. But I have faith, if they're hungry enough, they'll figure it out, as they always do, of course. So
for sure. And something you've kind of alluded to here, and again, in some of your content, you talked about the pain of sacrifice versus the pain of not seeing results. And I'd love to hear about how you navigate these pain points in your training, your diet recently, and any advice you have for people facing similar challenges.
yes, I think in the West, whenever we make a sacrifice, it's almost guaranteed by common law that it is your privilege to get X paycheck if you sacrifice those hours, or if you did it's always almost a sort of something in writing that you will get something in return for your sacrifice directly. bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding in particular, it is the only method where you may do everything perfect. You may make progress. You may just get it flawlessly, and it'll just say, fuck you. It didn't work. It'll just give you one big kick in the ass. It is the wildest thing. And I think, our modern temperaments want to feel like, okay, well, I'm never doing this again, or this isn't working, or I need to change something up. But generally, bodybuilding, I think it keeps it real. It says your sacrifice was not enough. I need more. It's like you can't go up to you can't go up to the altar and just slice one bull. I need 100 bulls, dude. I need to sacrifice more and more and more. It is the giving of your life. The best example I can think for this, it's go back to that Buddha sitting under the tree and saying, I'm not moving until I get an answer, right? Or Jesus on the cross, he says, I'm not budging until I get the result I want. It is a kamikaze-like stubbornness that you have to have in your sacrifice. You have to be willing to give everything, and that is a yearning that I think a lot of people don't want to answer, to give really everything. Do you really want to give everything? And then at this point, when you get to that sort of sticking point in your sacrifice and not getting anything, you ask yourself, do I just want the form, the outcome, the object, the pro card, the sort of the reputation, or do I really and truly want to find within myself, do I have what it takes to give the sacrifice? And I think that is the highest call for a human being, whether it be a parent for their children or a person to their craft, is how can I give all of myself to this? And generally, when you give everything, it cracks. And when you give everything, you find that you don't care anymore because you've let go. You've given it all up, right? You've sort of said, fuck it, I'm gonna go so hard, I'm gonna go so crazy, I'm gonna do it all perfect to a T, and I don't care what the result is. I'm here to give, I'm here to sacrifice. And when you get there, you get light, you get free, and it happens. It's like the heavens open up. It's just, if I had to write it out mathematically, it doesn't make sense. It's like 0 plus 0 equals 100. It just doesn't even make sense how it works to me still mechanistically, but it works. You have to forget the result, give all yourself to the process. No different than, let's say, you doing this podcast, or me living my day-to-day life, right? No different than what we're doing constantly all the time. So that's how I feel with sacrifice. If you sacrifice, it should not ever be for results. It should never be for something you get back. Though we don't get me wrong, we want the fruits of our labor. But the sacrifice is it'll cost you. It'll cost you, and it pays when it wants to.
Ryan, are you a fan of Dragon Ball Z? Do you
I
know
am a
it at
fan of
all?
Dragon Ball Z.
What you're talking through here, and I don't know why it really comes to mind, but it's like Vegeta when he goes Super Saiyan.
Mhm.
And I just remember his quotes, like he just didn't care anymore. He didn't care about going Super Saiyan. He didn't care about any of like the outcome. He was just all in to do everything he could to be his best. And then he
Yes.
got it.
And what Vegeta displayed there, I feel, is what we're all looking for in this bodybuilding method, right? Is to exhibit the highest form of human consciousness, where I'm in a flow state, where I'm just abundantly moving through my talents. I'm fully engaged. I'm fully immersed. And you can get this not just through bodybuilding. You could be an ice skater. There are many ways to feel this kind of moment of just you being at one with the universe, right? Kind of free and enlightened. And I think that's what bodybuilding gives you. It drives you, it breaks you down and beats you to the point of to give you complete self so you can get sort of something new. One thing Jesus always says, he says, those who lose their life will find their life. And to me, that is bodybuilding 101, right? If you turn in that old thing, turn in all those old habits, if you turn it in completely, you'll get a life that's just like you. You've got these coaches. You've got pro coach. It's like me and you are the same. We're like, how did this happen? We're just kids working out, and it's really mind blowing that any of this has happened, and it's all a result of complete sacrifice, of just completely going Vegeta and saying, I'm actually not interested. I'm just going to. In some ways, I hate to even use this term. It's a bit of a trigger for some people. it's like a beneficial suicide of sorts, right? Where I don't actually end my life and end it, but I end my life as I know it. And I move forward and I step into a new life. And the sacrifice must be complete. It must be absolutely complete. And this is not hardcore talk. This is not me trying to sound like I've got a chip on my shoulder and I'm better than other people. This is the universe's ask of us. This is just what it takes, and we're capable as human beings to do it. And it takes a lot of time and patience and practice and years to get there. But to experience it, I think it's a peak moment in any human's life. And I think that's what we're craving, is that peak moment.
For sure. And actually, this relates really nicely to Phil Stoltz, who you've read his work of, and he talks about escaping homeostasis and comfort zones. So yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that and how you've kind of experienced it yourself. I don't know if you have any examples or if you've helped any clients kind of get through some of these periods of time where it's like, it's abundantly obvious to you that they are avoiding that discomfort.
Big time. Big time. One of the, and I keep referring to things I've learned in the past. So one thing that I learned from muscle work, it's very similar to what I think religions call on a lot, which is keeping faith in what you're doing, right? If I were driving across the country and it was taking a long time, I would just keep faith that I will get there eventually, right? It's often when you lose faith in what we're doing that you try an idea of your own, and we jump off board of sort of the process. And I think one thing that can make a human lose faith in what we're doing faster than anything is when the pain sets in, when you're having hard nights of sleep, when the hunger really sets in, when you're really flat and you're not liking how you're looking, right? You can come up with all types of crazy ideas that are not on the process. You say, well, I'm really flat, but if I know if I just really carved up right now, and then you get these emails and you say, hey coach, I made this decision, and they tell you what they did. And good coaches, we forgive and we say, all right, well, let's see the fruits of this way and we'll let you try it. And we continue to forgive. But eventually, this is not me who's telling you this. I'm simply your GPS. You're going to have to walk through the fire. There's no other way. The only way out is through, so to speak, and it has to hurt, right? We are still earth organisms. It hurts, dude. It hurts. New things hurt. If a woman gives birth to a child, a new thing, it's very painful, right? To make something new is very painful. When planets collide and smash, it's destruction and it's chaos. And this is sort of something that Jordan Peterson talks about, as well as Phil Stutz. Use the pain and ride the wave of that pain. It's sort of like when you see football, American football players, and they're the defensive linemen. They're like, and they're grunting, and they're saying, bring on the pain. I like the pain. When Vegeta went Super Saiyan, he said, I actually like this pain. I'm actually a fan of this pain. I've lost all my old life, of my old reservations for my old limits of where I would like to go. But I'm going limitless. I'm willing to more or less kill myself. I heard Kai Green say something years ago. He says this, well, weight kills me. Fuck it. It kills me. But it never kills you. That's the trick. It will never kill you. We're talking about just exercise here. We're not talking about, going on the front lines to battle. We're simply talking about volunteering yourself up on a cross, volunteering yourself up under that Bodhi tree, like the Buddha, or Phil Stutz says, volunteering yourself up for the pain, saying, I like the pain, bring on the pain. And I think when you get into sort of that mentality, it changes everything. You flow through fast. I mean, as fast as possible. And the pain hurts, but it's all just a temporary state. And I think the very comfortable lives we live in makes us very pain averse, which is somewhat problematic for the method. And I think the method brings it back. When I got on this podcast, I said I'm back to doing it because I live here. I live in the West. I live in Chicago. My life is very comfortable. I start seeing, I'm a little complaining here. You say, I'm a little, and so I need bodybuilding. I need it to sort of remain as my center spiritual practice. It's the only way that I'm going to keep my mind straight. I'm going to actually stay diligent. I'm actually going to stay on top of things. And for me, it's not about, like I said, competing anymore, but I personally need it for me. If I want Ryan to operate as Ryan, I must do it and I must live this way, no matter how much it hurts. I'll have to do what I'm sent here to do.
I love that so much. I have some immediate examples of my own that just were coming to mind where you were talking through that. I was thinking about my leg training just yesterday, and I had 3 sets of leg press, and I was like, I could rationalize leaving more in the tank, maybe reducing the load, making up for it with volume, or changing the exercise because, man, leg press is tough. I'll just go onto the hack squat or something else that it wouldn't have been as uncomfortable as trying to maintain my performance on a really hard lift. Or even I think of like, oh, you're watching TV with your wife and it's nice and you want to finish the program, but you know, it's like bedtime. You need to get to bed. But I'll just have caffeine the next day if I'm tired. And it's like, you probably shouldn't do that. And it's this negative feedback loop of just seeking comfort in areas of life. And yeah, to be your best as a bodybuilder, or even just, but not necessarily competitive, but to get the best results, sometimes you have to make uncomfortable decisions like those that immediately come to mind for me. But as a final question for you, Ryan, because I think some people might have heard this podcast and like, wow, bodybuilding sounds freaking hardcore. That sounds like not a lifestyle for me. How do you help your clients and for yourself make sure that it doesn't consume you? Because I think before it probably did consume you, but now with a family, your business, everything else, you find some sort of balance there.
No, it consumes me still. It still I'm a bodybuilder. I've tried many things. I've worn many hats, but I'm a bodybuilder. That's what I am. And so I told my clients, and I tell people, answer the calling to the degree of which you're called, right? If you feel that your spirit continues to call and push you for more, answer. If you find that it says train 3 days a week and I can live with these, then answer that, right? We don't have anything to prove to anyone here. This is a personal journey that we're all walking. Some of us, for some reason, have been bestowed to go crazy with it and be on a very, very extreme. I'm more unhappy when I don't do this, right? And so I always tell people, keep it center, keep it at the level of a sacrifice where you feel you're happiest, where you feel most centered, right? You could be anything. I mean, I'm telling you, you could be a painter and find joy in that. You could be a photographer. But if you feel that you're one of us and this is what you do it to the degree that you do it. Us personally, Steve and I, we both said we're bodybuilders, but drugs just don't seem for us, right? Drugs and bodybuilding is very much bodybuilding. It's very much a part of bodybuilding. But for us, that's just sort of where we stopped. I just felt it wasn't my calling to go down that route. It's more complex. There's more chemistry involved. If I did feel called to do it, I would. But in all these years, I just find myself more and more uninterested in that route. So do what you feel interests you. Do what you feel calls you. You have nothing to prove for anyone in this world. If you do, you'll be extremely unhappy living in this awesome physique, that you don't even really feel suits you in who you are. So I've done it all. I've quit bodybuilding. I've said I'm done competing, and here I am back. I can't stay away. So be who you are. It's that simple. Your soul will tell you. It'll be clear as day, and do it to the degree to which you enjoy it and want to do it. It's that simple.
I didn't think that was how you were going to answer that question, but I think it's brilliant. I think it's exactly what people needed to hear. And it's what I needed to hear at various times where I was almost feeling bad and guilty for investing into it as much as I was. I can remember when I didn't have this career, when I was working in an office, and I'd be trying to fit in with a crowd that ultimately it wasn't who I was, like drinking, staying out late, this sort of thing. And as soon as I allowed myself to be me and really embrace bodybuilding, like life was so much better. I was so much happier. And I think there's people on either end of the spectrum. Like you said, there's people that they feel like they, see us talking and they're like, I want to be like them. And then they do it and they're like, actually not enjoying it. They're investing too much. So you I'm sure you have clients like that, Ryan, where you're like, I think you can draw this back. I think that's going to suit you better. It's going to be more sustainable that way too. So, oh man, so well said, Ryan. Reminds me why I like listening to you and talking to you and the way that you present things and think about the world. It's similar to Alberto Nunez. Sometimes Alberto will bring out some analogies or words and phrases where I'm like, it took me a moment to know what you meant there, but wow, like I've never thought about it. Those lines.
Berto is and if you listen to this, Berto, he is the great wizard. So much of what I am and what I've done is from Alberto Nunez. I'm telling you, when I saw him eat that Pop-Tart back in 2009, man, I lost my mind. I lost my mind. So, and so that's the thing I find beautiful, right? I came in through these guys that are a bit older than me, and then guys like you who are slightly younger than me. It's all beautiful and cyclical, and we're all learning from each other. And I can't thank you enough for what you do, man. I'm telling you, you've been a huge inspiration for me these past few years, just watching you grow and do your thing. And yeah, I mean, you learn from others. You learn from others. You learn what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and just glad to be part of this community. And thank you for having me, man. I can't say that enough.
Of course. And it's incredibly humbling to hear that you might have learned from me. Similar to, I don't know if you listened to it, but Matt Ogus, obviously, I managed to get him on the podcast. We chatted for hours, and that was like a crazy dream to have kind of that full circle moment in some ways. So I mentioned you're coaching quite a few times. I'd love for you to let people know where they might be able to kind of reach out for you regards to that. And then also, I know a lot of the content we spoke about has been on your YouTube channel, and you're actually very frequent on Instagram too. So yeah, let people know where they can kind of get more Ryan.
Yeah, so all my handles are the Natty Pro, chiefly through YouTube and Instagram right now is kind of where I'm really favoring making some content. My coaching is very simple. I don't have a large team. I just have a few people, a couple things in order, and I'm the sole coach. I do everything. I do all the check-ins. I do all the programs. I do everything. I really enjoy having a small company. Some of you may remember, Steve, remember when I had De Novo and it was like 30 people in the company. You know, it was just so many people coaching and supplements. And I learned from that I really love having a light business as much as possible. So I'm a very easy to reach person. If you want to contact me, my email is my first name Ryan at fortiseq.com, fortiseq.com. Even if you have just any general questions, I find when I do these podcasts, people's brains will get thinking and it'll just send me a question. So even if it's not a coaching inquiry, just send me a question. One of my passions is to, like I said, I find that this is sort of my church of sorts, right? This is my home. This is where I learn about my spirituality. This is where I learn about my growth. This is where I learn about the way I live life. And I find a lot of my clients come to me often for that, to pair with their training and nutrition as well. So, all right. Thank you, Steve. I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, dude, and all that you do. So I can't say it enough times.
Thank you.
What do you have left for the year, by the way?
I have a Switzerland show in just over a week's time. So it's peak week from Saturday. I'm waiting on Cliff to give me, I'm sending a check-in tomorrow and he's going to base my peak week off that. We did a rapid backload before, of course. Don't know if we'll be doing that again. And then after that, it'll be Boston Worlds. So
Boston,
WMBF
baby.
Worlds. Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I think that's 6 weeks. So I've got good time to make some progress between each show.
Big time. Hang tight, man. I know after that first show, you start fading a little bit. You know, you get all the highs and you get the pro card and you feel great. And you're like, do I even want to do these shows? But
I'm going to stay strong. And by the way, I'll make sure for those still listening, everything, Ryan's contacts will be listed in the description so you can get in touch with him. So thank you so much for listening and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.